Ruthe Stein, of course, many of you know, is the San Francisco Chronicle's movie correspondent. This program this afternoon is the third in a four-part series, and Ruth's subject today is When Jews Meet Gentiles. She has a lot of great stuff in this talk. I think you're going to enjoy it a lot. And just so you know, the last of this series is on Sunday, April 26th. Ruth will be together again with Peter Stein, former director of the San Francisco Film Festival and a movie director and producer on his own. And that will be right here at 4 o'clock Sunday, April 26th. And the title of that afternoon's talk is What's Not to Like, the movie's love affair with Jewish humor. So without any further ado, please welcome Ruthe Stein.
Thanks, Barbara. And I also appreciate your coming out on this incredible, beautiful day outside for the third part in our series about the Jewish experience as reflected on the big screen. When a Jew falls in love with a Gentile, as Good Housekeeping might have asked, can this relationship last? And mostly the answer, as we will see in these films, is no. I have been watching movies since I was 3, and my mother, probably not so advisably, took me to see Gone with the Wind. I have an indelible memory, a few years later, of standing in front of a theater box office in Miami Beach while she tried to convince the staff that it was perfectly fine for her 6-year-old daughter to see The Moon is Blue, which was X-rated at the time because of the language. Since 1980, I've been watching films professionally as a movie critic, feature writer, movie editor, and now movie correspondent of the San Francisco Chronicle. What a great profession it's been. I'm always interested in trends and how Hollywood treats real-life situations and how it pivots when things in society change. And I think there's a really good example of this in the boxing movies that have come out over the years. Back in the 30s and 40s, when Jews in tenements were using boxing as a way out of the ghetto, Hollywood gave us films like Body and Soul, starring John Garfield as a wannabe boxer, and Mr. Garfield himself was Jewish. But when the Italians took over in the boxing ring, then we got Somebody Up There Likes Me, starring Paul Newman, who was Jewish but playing the Italian, Raging Bull, and Rocky. Now there seems to be sort of a mini trend going on in Hollywood of actually telling the stories about older people, which is amazing because Hollywood's never seemed particularly interested in that subject. And it's all encapsulated in the wonderful acting of Al Pacino, who plays an aging actor in The Humbling, and an aging cobbler in a movie to come out called Manglehorn, and an aging rock star in Danny Collins. This is a new movie which I really encourage you to see. It's a very, very sweet film, and Mr. Pacino just gets things completely right. There's another movie coming out in the next few weeks called Woman in Gold. Maybe some of you have heard of it. It's the story of Maria Altman, played by the great Helen Mirren, an immigrant to Los Angeles who the Nazis forced out of Vienna during the war. And now in her 80s, she decides to try to get back the family paintings that were stolen by the Nazis, including several paintings of her family by Gustav Klimt, and one of them was the really famous, beautiful painting, Woman in Gold, which is of her Aunt Adele. It's been called an Austrian version of the Mona Lisa. It's a very famous painting, and then we see what happens with her. So for most of Hollywood's history, we never really thought about a romantic couple being of different faiths, specifically one person being Jewish. When Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers made beautiful music and effortlessly danced together, we have to assume that the subject of their religion never came up. And in their short, violent time together robbing banks, Bonnie and Clyde might not have even had a chance to discuss their faith. So what changed in the 1970s to produce the movies we'll be looking at this afternoon where one partner is Jewish? These movies reflect a huge shift in the mid-1960s. Suddenly, the rate of interfaith marriages ballooned it had been single digit to higher and higher numbers, culminating in more than half of the marriages today. Let's take a look at a few charts that are going to illustrate this for you. So this is our first one. As you can see, before 1970, 83% of marriages were between Jews, and just 17% of Jews married outside the faith. While by 2013, the last year that this was analyzed, 42% of Jews married other Jews, and 58% married outside the religion. This next chart's not going to surprise anyone. Half of Reformed Jews married outside the faith, while only 2% of Orthodox Jews do. Among conservatives, the number is 27%. And here, let's look at, these are interesting figures too. These studies shows how the adult offspring of intermarriages are much more likely than adults with two Jewish parents to identify themselves as atheists or having no religion at all. So this was really, wasn't this our grandparents' fear that would happen? And it appears that it did happen. For instance, 85% of millennials with two Jewish parents identify as Jews, opposed to 49% of them with no Jewish parent. So let's look at the younger generations here. What they found is that among U.S. adults aged 65 and older who had one Jewish parent, 25% are Jewish today. By contrast, 59% of Jewish adults younger than 30 who have one Jewish parent identify as Jewish. So we're looking at the impact of assimilation, and this has a great impact on the films we're going to be seeing, on the reason why the films came out when they did, and also the reasons why they stopped making films like this. And I wanted you to see these statistics so that you'd understand this huge sea change in the behavior of American Jews. The majority of them never would have thought of marrying outside of the religion in their 1950s, and how this behavior then became the norm. It even became the grist for a Jewish joke. Now try to imagine me saying this with a Henny Youngman accent. I'll do my best here. The rate of Jewish intermarriage is a serious problem. Scientists estimate that unless something can be done to stop intermarriage, in 100 years, the Jewish people will be reduced to a race of gorgeous blondes. This has also inspired a play going on in Walnut Creek right now. I saw the ad for it. It says, "My mother's Italian, my father is Jewish, and I'm in therapy." You have to consider to what extent movies like these ones we're about to see were influenced by this behavior and in turn influenced the behavior. Screenwriters and directors made movies on this subject because they knew it in their own lives, from their friends or even themselves. Families were being split apart by these so-called forbidden relationships. But just as quickly as these films appeared, they disappeared with the new century. It would be pointless to make a movie on the subject today because it's considered usual behavior, and you could never recreate the tension that existed in the 60s and 70s, and which we're going to see very much in the films that we're watching. But you shouldn't think intermarriage was strictly a 20th century phenomenon. It actually had its antecedents in the 19th century. I want to take you back to a Ukrainian village called Anaktevia, to 1905, to a family led by a wise father, Tevye, who looks for guidance of all things to a fiddler on the roof. Tevye has 3 marriage-age daughters. With his eldest, he has approved her marriage to a poor tailor, even though he and his wife had an arranged marriage to a very rich man who lived in town and was about the same age as Tevye. With his second daughter, he reluctantly approved a revolutionary for a son-in-law. But when his younger daughter, Chevelle, approached him with a Gentile boyfriend, it is a different story, and he sings, "That far I cannot bend." So let's look at some of the reasons these marriages began to flourish. An example was set in Hollywood itself, where Jews and non-Jews were mating off-screen as well as on. So there was Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis, and Eddie Fisher, and first Debbie Reynolds, and later Elizabeth Taylor, after the death of her husband, the Jewish showman Mike Todd. Here is what Philip Roth wrote on the subject in his novel, Portnoy's Complaint, and we're going to be looking at a clip from the movie in a few minutes. "I too want to be the boyfriend of Debbie Reynolds. It's the Eddie Fisher in me coming out. That's all. The longing in all of us swarthy Jew boys for those bland, blonde exotics called shiksas. Only what I didn't know yet in these feverish years is that for every Eddie yearning for a Debbie, there is a Debbie yearning for an Eddie. A Marilyn Monroe yearning for her Arthur Miller, even an Alice Faye, for those of us who remember Alice Faye, yearning for Phil Harris. The clips we're about to watch have a lot to do with yearning and desire for someone different from yourself, someone your parents might not want for you. The idea that these non-Jews are forbidden fruit only feeds the desire. So first we're going to look at one of my favorite movies of this genre, the 1972 comedy called The Heartbreak Kid. There was a movie made, The Heartbreak Kid, that was made in the 90s, but it's a different movie, so if you're going to look for it, be sure to look for this one. Charles Grodin plays Lenny, an awkward Jewish man whose longing is even more acute because he meets his dream girl, Sybil Shepherd, at her most beautiful while he's on a honeymoon in Miami Beach with his Jewish wife, Lila, played by Jeannie Berlin. So there we have Sybil, and there we have Jeannie, looking better than she does in the movie. The film historian Patricia Ahrens points out in her book, The Jew in American Cinema, and by the way, you're all going to get a bibliography after the end of the talk that's going to have these references in case you want more information. The deck is stacked against Lila with her curly hair and pudgy features and whiny voice. She is the Jewish ugly duckling. The difference is played out in the way the two women react to the outdoors and to swimming. Lila suffers a terrible sunburn the very first day she is out, and she has to stay in her room for the next 3 days, and she's a really awkward swimmer, while Kelly is a sun goddess who runs into the water and alights like a mermaid. Let's take a look.
That's my spot.
What? Excuse me?
I said you're lying in my spot.
This is your spot?
Everybody knows that.
I didn't know. I just got here. I didn't. I'll move. I just got here.
Never mind. Just don't do it again.
So you're going to see a little more of this. The movie was widely criticized by the Jewish community, who wondered why Lila had to be so awful and unpleasant. And Neil Simon, who wrote the screenplay, actually wrote that he wanted Diane Keaton to play Lila because Diane was very attractive. I never wanted to be a story of a guy who meets a homely girl, then meets the most gorgeous girl in America and wants to leave one for the other. That's too simple. It's sort of ironic that he would want Diane Keaton to play the part because she plays the shiksa, of course, in real life as well as in Annie Hall. But you can blame the casting on nepotism. Berlin is the daughter of the director, Elaine May, and you'd have to wonder why a mom would put her child in such a bad light. This is the best part Grodin ever had. The way he looks at Kelly, and he can't believe that she'd be interested in him. The longing, the amazement he displays. His excuses for leaving Lila alone get more and more preposterous. One night he says there was a major car accident that kept him from getting back, and he asked her, didn't you see it on television? Of course, there was no accident, but Kelly's father is played by Eddie Albert, and he exhibits thinly veiled anti-Semitism. He says he doesn't like the looks of Lenny and doesn't like one damn little thing about him. Also, the family changes their hotel because he doesn't like the element in the hotel where they are staying, and I think we probably all know that that's code for Jewish. Let's look at more of the film.
Minnesota? I mean, what do you want to live in a dumb place like Minnesota for?
What's wrong with Minnesota?
No, I mean, it's so far from New York.
Well, if you and your cute little wife are ever driving through, stop in and say hello.
Hey, is there another name that goes with Kelly?
Corcoran.
Kelly Corcoran. Well, see, now that figures. A girl like you is going to have a name like Kelly Corcoran.
What's your cute little wife's name?
Lila.
Lila?
Lila.
Does Lila come when you call her?
No, she's okay. Hey, what's that ring for?
Held my finger on. I've got leprosy.
That's funny.
I like your hair down. It gives you a teddy bear look. Does it bother you if I do that?
You can do anything you like.
Anything? I think you're ready for my test.
Test? You have a test? Terrific.
Give me your arm. Just relax. It's my own special scratch test. Only given to certain selected individuals. Relax. Relax your fingers.
Kelly, come on, honey, it's 3 o'clock. Let's go, huh?
Sure, Dad, I'll be there in just a minute. Okay, go ahead. I promise. Be right there. Well, thanks for the Coke.
Wait a minute. Where are you going in the middle of a beautiful day?
We're checking out.
You're checking out today?
Daddy doesn't like this place. He doesn't like the element you get here. We're moving to the Jockey Club until Saturday.
Wait a second. I've got to see you one more time. I've got to prove something to myself.
Well, we're moving to the Jockey Club.
Oh, can I see you there? I mean, can I meet you for a drink? I'll come over there, like 7 o'clock.
We're going out to the Fontainebleau tonight with some Colorado people.
Well, I could come over there. I'll stop over there for a drink at 7 o'clock.
What about your cute little wife?
No, it's okay. A drink at 7 o'clock then, okay?
Well, if Lila won't let you, you can have my spot on the beach.
This movie has somewhat been forgotten, but Jerry Seinfeld has called it his favorite comedy. Not his favorite Jewish comedy, but just his favorite comedy. And that's kind of funny because in a way, he sort of lived out a similar scenario to this movie in his real life. I don't know how many of you remember when this happened, but he's currently married to a woman he met at the gym a week after she'd married someone else. She did divorce her husband, and she married Seinfeld. They're apparently very happy. They have several kids. And there was a funny story in the New York Times right after this happened, written by her woman's first husband, the one that had been, and about how this was just so incredibly humiliating for him. But I guess when you're Seinfeld, and anyway, whatever. I thought that was interesting to note. So next we're going to be talking about probably This and Annie Hall are the best known of the films that we're going to be watching today in terms of telling the story of relationships between Jews and non-Jews. This is a different pairing, however. It's a Jewish woman played by Barbra Streisand who falls heads over heels in love with a golden goy played by Robert Redford, who has never been more handsome, in The Way We Were from 1973. The film originally, the screenplay, it was supposed to be more about the Hollywood blacklist and how it affected writers, because the Redford character becomes a screenwriter in Hollywood. But the chemistry between Streisand and Redford was so explosive that they slanted the movie to be more about them. And their romance plays out in the first half of the film. The second half, when they arrive in Hollywood and it's more about the political stuff, isn't nearly as interesting or sexy. So these star-crossed lovers are named Katie Morawski and the wonderfully named Hubble Gardner. I've never met a Hubble before or after. I don't know, maybe some of you know one, but and there is Streisand. They meet in college, and then they meet again in New York during the war. Katie is a political activist, a sort of a communist, but she also supports Roosevelt. And she's an all-around pill. She's always lecturing on campus and telling everybody what they should be believing or thinking. Hubble, on the other hand, is an all-around athlete, also an incredibly talented writer, and of course, there are those golden good looks. So here we see them meeting again at El Morocco during the war, just running into one another, and then there's a flashback to their college years, and of course, this is Streisand singing the lovely title song.
And a Scott straight up. Here's your Dubonnet, Morawski. Oh, to be in uniform.
Hubble Gardner.
What?
That's his name.
Swell. What's hers?
I suppose they learned that incredible balance on board ship.
Absolutely. Let's dance. But we've got news. We'll probably be going overseas very soon. It's all pretty hush-hush.
Stop. The ROTC, you can have it cheap. Fascist.
the smiles we left behind, smiles we gave to one another for the way we were.
The movie doesn't really make that much of the religious differences. They're just different people culturally, and I think that's important to keep in mind with this film. He's easygoing, she's high-strung, she's always looking for issues to grandstand about. But there's a code, like there was in the earlier movie, that you could read she is Jewish. So she has these Harpo Marx curls. She straightens her hair and looks less Jewish, but when he sees her again with the straight hair, he asks if changing her hair like that hurt. Later, when the relationship falls apart, she says, it's because I'm not attractive enough. I don't have the right style, and I think that we can also read this to mean because I look too Jewish. So let's take a look at, continue with them during the war when they meet up again.
Papa? Papa?
What do you know?
Small world, isn't it?
I fall asleep.
Do you think so?
What do you know?
Would you like to have a cup of coffee?
Oh, yeah. Coffee. Yeah. Here you are, Katie, kiddo. Good night. Good night. Good night, little boy. Whoever you are. Who are you?
It's the top floor. Only one more. In there.
Papa?
General quarters, countdown. Okay, say, forward.
So, of course, Babs responds the way any woman would who found Robert Redford in her bed. Her political associations, not Babs, but the character she plays, ended up being problematic for him in Hollywood, and they divorce, and then each marries someone of their own kind. She ends up with a Jewish husband who's also very political, left-wing, and he has a very wasp wife in the last scene. There's been talk over the years about making a sequel to this movie, and thank God they haven't done it. But there was a sweet little coda that I happened to notice the other day. There was an ad in the New York Times. Robert Redford is going to be given an award at Lincoln Center this month, and Barbra Streisand is going to be presenting it to him. So I thought that was nice. It made me think that they ended up on really good terms from making the film. Okay, so next we go to another classic, to Annie Hall. Woody Allen has made a career out of inventing relationships between Jewish men and shiksas. He could understand the dynamics because much of his early years, at least, were spent in these relationships with Diane Keaton and Mia Farrow, who often found themselves playing roles on the screen very similar to their relationship that they had with Woody in real life. But Annie Hall from 1977 remains the gold standard for Woody's films, Woody's romantic films. A wonderful, warm-hearted movie that won an Oscar for Best Picture and Best Actress for Diane Keaton. The title character, as she inhabits, is the ultimate shiksa, adorable in a waspy kind of way and able to hold her own against Allen's character, Alvy Singer. It is this give and take that between them, it makes them on par with Nick and Nora Charles from the Thin Man series, and it's really what makes the movie stand out. Alvy makes Annie feel that she isn't smart, or at least not smart enough for him, but the audience sees something different. We see her more than holding her own. So here is Woody, and there's Diane. That Alan was in love with Keaton at the time only made the romance more poignant. When they break up on screen, it feels all wrong, as do his dates with other women. They don't get him in the way Annie does. Despite their extremely different backgrounds, she sees him as a person. It's a fascinating point Alan seems to be making, that cultural or religious differences don't necessarily mean people aren't compatible. Although in the end, love isn't enough. They are from different planets. Annie Hall addresses the split within the American Jewish personality. The distinction that he makes in the film is between a real Jew, someone who is religious and maybe has payas and, and a non-practicing Jew. It's hard just to find one scene to show you in this movie because it's overall so wonderful. If you haven't seen it in a while, absolutely see it again and marvel how the same filmmaker 37 years later could give us Blue Jasmine. In the sequences we're about to see, the differences in their backgrounds, he's Jewish, she's not, are the most pronounced. Woody talks to the audience about this. Few filmmakers have been able to get away with this, but he can. So she invites him to her family home, to her parents' home for the holidays. And you first see the family home being a huge contrast to the cramped apartment where he grew up. We will look at what happens when he comes to her house for the holidays. They're all talking about the dinner, and there's Grammy Hall, who made the ham, which is the topic of much conversation here. And of interest, Grammy Hall is played by Keaton's real grandmother. Be sure to notice how he responds with a fantasy that conveys how he feels under Grammy's intensely anti-Semitic gaze. He responds to her seeing him as a real Jew, although that's not the way he sees himself, of course. Again, this is makes a cultural difference. The contrast with the family is done between his family and theirs is done with the split screen, and it's used very effectively. It's a hard device, and sometimes it doesn't come across well in films, but it works very well here, because what we see is that the families are like oil and water. And I also threw in a scene with Christopher Walken, which is not at all related to the point we're making tonight, but it's so funny I had to include it. So here we go.
It's a nice ham this year, Mom.
Oh, yeah. Grammy always does such a good job.
Great sauce.
It is. It's dynamite ham.
We went over to the swap meet. Annie, Graham, and I. Got some nice picture frames.
We really had a good time.
Anne tells us that you've been seeing a psychiatrist for 15 years.
Yes, I'm making excellent progress. Pretty soon when I lie down on his couch, I won't have to wear the lobster bib.
Dwayne and I went out to the boat basin.
We were caulking holes all day.
And Randolph Hunt was drunk, as usual.
Oh, that Randolph Hunt. You remember Randy Hunt, Annie? He was in the choir with you.
Oh, yes.
I can't believe this family. Annie's mother is really beautiful. And they're talking swap meets and boat basins. And the old lady at the end of the table is a classic Jew hater. And they really look American, you know, very healthy. They're like they never get sick or anything. Nothing like my family. You know, the two are like oil and water.
Let him drop dead. Who needs his business?
His wife has diabetes.
Diabetes?
Jack Adams
Is that
is
an
the new
excuse,
president.
diabetes?
Let me tell you.
A man is 50
else.
years old and doesn't have a substantial job.
Is that a reason to
Oh, yes, that's right.
What are you talking about? You know what you're talking about?
Sure, defend him.
Oh, you remember her?
Yes, I do.
We were in 4-H.
Mo Moscow, he had a coronary.
How do you plan to spend the holidays, Mrs. Singer?
We fast.
Fast?
No food. To atone for our sins.
What sins? I don't understand.
Tell you the truth, neither do we.
Howdy.
Hi, Dwayne. How's it going?
This is my room.
Oh, yeah? It's terrific.
Can I confess something? I tell you this because, as an artist, I think you'll understand.
I have to go now, Dwayne, because I'm due back on the planet Earth.
Don't let it be so long now.
No.
And look up Uncle Billy,
Okay.
promise.
Oh, he is adorable.
Yeah. Do you think so, really?
You're going to take them to the airport now.
No, Dwayne can. I haven't finished my drink.
Yes, Dwayne is. I'll be right. Just a second. I have to get the...
You followed me. I can't believe it.
I didn't follow you.
You followed me.
Why? Because I was walking along a block behind you staring at you? That's not following.
Well, what is your definition of following?
Following is different. I was spying.
Do you realize how paranoid you are?
Paranoid? I'm looking at you. You got your arms around another guy.
That is the worst kind of paranoid.
Jesus. Well, I didn't start out spying. I thought I'd surprise you, pick you up after school.
Yeah, well, you wanted to keep the relationship flexible. Remember, it's your phrase.
But you're having an affair with your college professor, that jerk that teaches that incredible crap course, Contemporary Crisis in Western Man.
Existential motifs in Russian literature. You're really close.
What's the difference? It's all mental masturbation.
Oh, well, now we're finally getting to a subject you know something about.
Hey, don't knock masturbation. It's sex with someone I love.
We're not having an affair. He's married. He just happens to think I'm neat.
Neat. There's that. What are you, 12 years old? That's one of your Chippewa Falls expressions.
Who
Neat.
cares? Who cares?
Next thing you know, we'll find you keen and peachy, you know. Next thing you know, he's got his hand on your ass.
You've always had hostility towards David, ever since I mentioned him.
David? You call your teacher David?
It's his name.
Well, listen, I said it's a biblical name, right? What does he call you, Bathsheba?
Alvy. Alvy, you're the one who never wanted to make a real commitment.
So they do end up breaking up. And once again, film historian Patricia Ahrens has written that the split is as much from her growth as it is from their ethnic differences. Alvy acted as her mentor, a role Jewish men frequently take on with shiksa girlfriends, and we're going to see this in Portnoy's complaint. He gave her books, he sends her to night school, and ultimately he sends her into analysis. But then she doesn't seem to need him in the way that she did. You can see that she's advanced further in one session than he has in 15 years. And that's what he really cannot abide, and that's when the relationship ends. So the next film I want to show you is not as well known as the other ones, but it's a very, very good film, and I encourage you to see it if you have a chance. It's called White Palace, and it's a compelling movie and sensual in a way that Hollywood doesn't do anymore, except maybe for 50 Shades of Grey. White Palace came out in 1990. It's based on a novel by a St. Louis writer named Glenn Savin. He never wrote anything as good as this, and he sadly died prematurely. It's set in St. Louis, and it's filmed there with a lot of really nice shots of the city. It tells the story of Max, a successful ad executive in his late 20s. He lost his wife in a car crash 2 years before the drama starts in this film. At a bar, he runs into Nora, a waitress from the White Palace, which is based on the real-life White Castle, some of you may know, a cheap hamburger chain in the Midwest. Max is played by James Spader, looking so much younger and thinner than he did on Boston Legal. And Susan Sarandon plays Nora. She looks convincingly slutty, and she's very sexy in this movie. She's in her early 40s, the character. No spring chicken, as his Jewish mother tells him the first time she meets her. Nora comes on to him sexually, brings him into her house, and they begin a passionate love affair, you could definitely say, between opposites. She's a slovenly housekeeper, his place is immaculate, the same can be said of their appearances. So this is a different take on the Jewish man and the shiksa girlfriend theme, far away from the shiksa goddesses in movies like Heartbreak Kid and Annie Hall. There are huge differences between this couple that have nothing to do with religion. They're from very different social classes, and she's 16 years older than him. But still, there is a Jewish theme as well, and it is artfully weaved through this film. When Nora first meets him, she says, "Anyone ever tell you you look like Tony Curtis?" I have to have a moment here because I interviewed Tony Curtis on this very stage about 6 years ago. Curtis was born Bernie Schwartz. He, of course, really is Jewish. And then she asks him if he is Italian, and when he says he is Jewish, she says, "To tell you the truth, I don't know too many Jews." Later, when Nora is trying to break off the relationship, she says to him, "You should go get yourself a nice Jewish girl, a nice young girl with a college education." And what she really is saying, a nice Jewish girl like yourself. And he says, I don't want a nice young girl. I want you. So when she goes to meet his parents and his friends at a Thanksgiving dinner, she asks them, they're not going to all be talking Jewish, are they? All his friends have names like Horowitz and Solomon and Fishman. This encounter makes for a memorable scene, which we're going to be seeing in just a second. Well, you need to know this is the first time Nora has met any of his family or friends. His friends have been trying to fix him up since shortly after the death of his wife, but he's always said that he wasn't interested. So they are wildly curious about the girl who has captured their Max. And they probably expect someone like his late wife, somebody young, accomplished, and yes, Jewish. So you also need to know that the scene is really shot through Nora's perspective. She sees people looking at her from the couch, but that may be exaggerated. That may be more her self-consciousness than the way they're really looking at her. Notice Jason Alexander plays one of Max's friends. Also in this scene is Renee Taylor playing his mother as a very stereotypical Jewish mother. It ends with a political conversation around the family table, which is really sort of toxic for everybody involved. So let's take a look at White Palace.
Come on in. Hey, no running, no running. Hey, honey, Rach, Max is here. Rach, honey, Max is here.
Oh, coming. I got you, honey. Hello, I'm Rachel Horowitz. Hello, Edith. I'm so happy you could come.
I brought you my noodle pudding.
Oh, thank you, Edith. You didn't have to do that.
Rachel, this is Nora Baker.
Welcome to our home, Nora. Let me take your coat. Oh, thank you, Max. What would you like to drink? Oh, do you drink?
Sometimes, yeah. Do you have vodka and tonic?
Oh, we have everything. And scotch for you, Max?
No, I'll have a vodka and tonic, too.
Really? Neil, would you fix 2 vodka and tonics?
The vodka tonics.
Now, Max knows everybody, I think. Sherry! Sherry!
I'm right here.
This is Sherry Klugman. Sherry Nora Baker.
Hello, Nora. Lovely to meet you. Thank you, same here. Hi, Max.
Hey, Sherry.
2 vodka tonics.
Nora, this is Neil's father, Sal Horowitz.
Hello,
this is Nora Baker,
Fine,
Dad.
thank you.
Sal, you know Max.
Tell her are my favorites.
Would you excuse me? I have to check the kitchen. I have a cranberry problem.
Hey.
You okay?
Uh-huh.
Go easy with the whole day ahead of us. Sure you're all right?
Stop asking me that.
Max! Darling!
Oh, it's so good to see you. Oh, darling. Can you believe it? I'm going to be a grandmother.
I know. How about that? How are you doing?
Oh, well, Saul took me to Italy for my birthday. That's how I'm doing. Oh, isn't this house terrific? Is Rachel one lucky girl? Oh, and Noreen.
Nora.
Nora, very nice to meet you.
Little Maxie.
This is Rachel's mother, Nora Baker.
Hi.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it was an accident. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get it on your carpet.
Don't worry about it. Don't relax, darling. It's no big deal.
Hello. Yeah, what are you getting?
Hi.
You're Max's lady.
I'm with him.
I'm Larry Klugman. Max and I went to high school together.
Nora Baker.
Oh! Your glass is empty. What do you drink?
Vodka. Straight.
What do you think of our boy?
Nice boy.
Well, here we go. Vodka. Straight.
Honey, can I see you a second, please? I want to show you the kitchen chairs. They're exactly what we've been looking for.
Sure.
Excuse us, please. Sure. Hey, you better get a peek at those chairs, Larry.
Hey. Huh?
Yeah.
Edith, don't worry about it. I did it. I want to. Please, come on. Edith, you're a guest in the... I know, but I want to get this spot out. Just sit there. I did it. Just relax. Relax. Come out, believe me.
In a minute.
Nora? Nora?
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I wasn't live.
No, it's all right. I was just leaving, putting on my lipstick.
No, that's all right. Good color, your lipstick. And I love your sweater.
Thanks. Listen, I'll just leave you alone here.
Oh, hey, you can smoke. Larry smokes like a chimney. So, you live in St. Louis?
Yeah.
You work in town?
Yeah, I do.
What's your work?
I'm in food preparation.
Food preparation? That's interesting. You mean catering?
I'm a waitress.
Really? Where?
White Palace. It's a hamburger restaurant.
Oh.
What do you do?
I'm a decorator. Oh, I love this scent. Smell. Isn't it subtle?
Oh, very subtle.
So, how did you meet Max?
Came in for a burger.
How romantic. You know, he's quite a catch, our Max. How'd you ever do it?
Give a good blowjob, I guess.
Ooh, I'll bet you do.
I bet you don't. Look, I'm not Janie, okay?
I don't know who you are, and I don't know where you came from, but you're a guest in this house. And there was a Janie, but no one is mad at you. And we don't want to judge you, and I don't think you should be so fast to judge other people's blowjobs. Because what you see isn't always what you get.
We haven't had a decent leadership in this country the past 10 years.
Dak, what about tax reform? What about defense?
What about $1 trillion deficit?
If we don't have the money, how can we keep spending it?
You're a very nice girl, Rachel. You're my favorite daughter-in-law. But would it kill you to pick up a newspaper? Iran scam, HUD, El Salvador. I tell you, those guys would be lucky if they come off any better than Nixon.
Oh, I don't know. They seem like pretty nice guys to me.
I can't be serious.
She's entitled to her opinion.
I'm sorry, you have to forgive me. I'm terrible with names.
Nora, I told you twice already.
Well, Dora, let me just say this. That is precisely the kind of attitude that's landed this country in the mess that it's in today. I don't know if you have any children or not, but if you do, and they inherit a lifetime of crippling debt, I'm not so sure they're gonna be such nice guys anymore.
Dad, come on.
We're talking about people, folks, who are unmitigated tragedies for the working class.
Mister, I am working class. What the hell do you know about it anyway? It doesn't look to me like you've been missing too many meals.
Saul, enough politics already. It's Thanksgiving.
It doesn't make any difference to me who's in the goddamn White House. I mean, Merle Haggard could be made president. I'm still gonna be at Shit City. I'm still gonna be choking on burger grease. I'm still gonna be busting my hump for the minimum fucking wage. And Betty here, she's gonna be serving you turkey for $30 a day, right?
So one thing to know about Nora's character is that she had a child that died, and it's a very emotional issue for her. So him raising that at the table, that was in part the way she reacted to it. I really like this movie a lot, and I do mean that you should see it. But the false note, I think, comes at the end where they actually end up together. I don't know whether that was in the book, but it just seems very unlikely. Nora moves to New York to get away from him. Max follows her there. He tracks down the restaurant she's working in, and they have sort of the quintessential Hollywood moment where they kiss and everybody's applauding all around them and everything. So, I mean, to my mind, that would be a very hard relationship to sustain over the long haul, but we can talk about that. And as I said, I really do encourage you to see the movie because most of it is just very, very, very good. So the last film we're going to be looking at, it's also my least favorite, in some ways the most controversial when it came out, but now really all but forgotten. It's called Portnoy's Complaint, and actually, let's put Philip back on, sorry. Okay, so when Philip Roth's novel, Portnoy's Complaint, came out in 1969, it was a cause célèbre. All the critics who celebrated Roth's writing, both with that novel and in the books he'd written before, there were Jews who were furious at his explicit treatment of sexuality, including detailed depictions of masturbation, using various props, including a piece of liver, and his frequent use of obscenities. Such things just weren't mentioned in the late 60s, and his portrayal of a young, intelligent Jewish man as being obsessed with sex was not, many Jews felt, good for Jewish people. So Alexander Portnoy, his first name may have been forgotten, but probably not his last name, he was particularly obsessed with shiksas. Roth had created for him a larger-than-life shiksa by the name of Mary Jane Reed, forever immortalized by her nickname, the Monkey. She explained to him where the nickname came from, but I won't divulge it now in an attempt to keep this lecture PG-13. She was the star of every pornographic dream I ever had, Portnoy says. The Monkey is believed to be a caricature of Roth's first wife, Margaret Martinson, a secretary at the University of Chicago, where he attended graduate school. He has said that she tricked him into marrying her by buying urine from a pregnant woman, telling him it was his and the baby was his. So that I think that relationship didn't last for a very long time. Many doubted that the novel could be made into a movie, but it was in 1972, just 3 years after the book's publication. Director-screenwriter Ernest Lehman, who's done some very fine films other than this film, kept the conceit of framing the movie around Portnoy's sessions with a shrink in which he talks about his sexual mishaps. Richard Benjamin is perfectly cast as Portnoy. He looks like the smart aleck Jewish kid down the block. And a few years earlier, he had played the Roth surrogate very successfully in Goodbye, Columbus. Karen Black was also good casting as the Monkey. She oozes sexuality, and she's able to play dumb better than most of the actresses of her generation, an ability she shared, incidentally, with Marilyn Monroe. There are the scenes that will remind you of Arthur Miller and Monroe, and of Allen and Keaton and Annie Hall, when Portnoy, again, tries to educate the Monkey, taking her to the art museum, reading her poetry. References are made to religious differences, although not that much is made of them. She says to him, "You have those deep Heb eyes." That's like Hebrew eyes. She calls him her Jewish prude. He calls her a Nazi bitch. And then it gets better. The movie is strangely flat, even boring, as hard as that is to believe, considering how much sexuality was included in it. Lehman made a misstep in focusing so much of it on Portnoy and the Monkey. Their arguments sound repetitive, and even their sex life gets boring. Hollywood wasn't ready for actors going full frontal quite yet. It would be 10 years before that came to be. So it is mostly talk, and mostly Portnoy who's doing the talking in large chunks lifted from the novel. But, you know, again, as we know, movies are supposed to show, not tell, and there's too much of Roth's writing that appears in the film. Benjamin's frenzied talk is well captured in this scene when his parents, definitely presented as stereotypes, confront him at the dinner table, and they want information about the monkey, whom they have not yet met. A film writer, Joel Sandberg, says that the movie was an irreducible mess, unfunny and portraying stereotypic images of Jews. There's no real story, just sketches that add up to one sordid portrait of the artist as a fictional young man. Lee Grant, who's much too young for the part, plays his mother, and Jack Somak is his parents. And they take Kretsching to an entirely new cinematic level. His parents are used to him dating non-Jews. His father says, so what is new about that? Did you ever go with a Jewish girl? But they're still not prepared for black. In the scene, we'll see Monkey is talking about her life, and then his parents warn him that she will eat him alive. So let's see.
So what did Harpo say when you told him I was your breakthrough? Christ, what a word.
Well, he didn't say yes, but then he didn't say no either. But he did cough.
Aha!
Sometimes he coughs, sometimes he grunts, sometimes he belches.
I'll bet sometimes he even farts.
How did you know that?
Typical negative transference reaction of an Orthodox Freudian. Incidentally, what started you in the True Confessions game? Did you hear me?
I don't know. Yes, I do. It was a couple of years after my divorce. I tried to kill myself a little.
That's nice.
I made a pass at my wrist with a razor in the powder room at El Morocco. Something dumb, unimportant that my boyfriend said to me.
Which do you want to tell me about first? The boyfriend or the husband?
Neither.
I didn't give you that choice.
Okay, my husband, Jacques. Can you believe it? French, 50, filthy rich, and as it later turned out, just plain filthy. I was modeling in a show at the Pitti Palace in Florence. I don't know what he was doing there. He manufactures ball bearings or something. Probably looking for someone just like me.
Aren't we all?
Anyway, he found me. And inside of a week, he knocked me over completely, wedding bells and all, took me back to Paris. I guess the only reason I stuck with him as long as I did was I must have felt sorry for the poor bastard. Our marriage, all 14 months of it. It's kind of like hilarious if you're pretty good at laughing while you're throwing up. You want to hear a groovy sex life? Me in bed beside him while he's jerking off into a copy of a magazine called Carter Belt. Flown over direct from 42nd Street.
What'd you expect him to use? The Atlantic Monthly?
So, how come you're in such a good mood lately?
Who's in a good mood?
You are. You haven't been Mr. Hot Under the Collar with me or your father for 5 weeks. I've been counting.
Must be the weather.
You want me to tell you what it is?
Actually, no, but you're going to anyway.
It's a girl, that's what it is, with long hair and long legs.
You've been going to that fortune teller again.
Save the smart remarks for Channel 13 and tell us about it.
Who?
The one Pearlie Ellenstein saw you with at Barnwood Tellers when she was shopping a panty girdle for her Ruthe.
She could use one herself.
The one you were kissing in broad daylight on 57th Street and 6th Avenue when Tessie Berlinger was getting on the number 5 bus and almost tripped on the steps.
Well, teach her to keep her eyes where they belong.
So?
So, congratulations. I hope you and the CIA are very happy together.
That's no answer.
Okay, okay. I wanted to save you the gushrying and the wailing, the moaning and the groaning. I'm going with a girl, a shiksa.
What's so new about that? When in your whole life did you ever go with a Jewish girl?
Once, when I was 12 years old, I walked a girl named Irene Faber to Hebrew school.
And it killed you, didn't it?
Jack, please. Your stomach. So you like this girl?
I like a lot of girls.
And she likes the Jews?
One. Me.
You think maybe she'd like your mother and father?
How do I know? Why shouldn't she?
You think maybe she'd like to meet us?
I'll ask her sometime, okay?
Yes, okay. This I want to see. They'll put it down in the history books. Ask her the next time you take her to some motel for the night.
It's not a motel. It's not for the night. It's an inn in Vermont. And it's for the weekend, this coming weekend.
Plum, darling, light of the world, think about what you're doing. Don't give yourself away, cheap. You must be careful of your life. Listen to what we're saying.
Who can help listening?
And without the scowl, thank you, and the brilliant back talk, we know, we have lived, we have seen. It doesn't work, my Plum. They are another breed of human being. And Kyle, Jack, tell him, don't throw away a brilliant future on a blondie, please. She'll take you for all your work and leave you bleeding in the gutter. A brilliant baby boy like you. She'll eat you alive.
So there's a really cautionary note. They're another breed. Like, in other words, they're almost sort of like not human in the way that you're human. There was something else that I observed that I hadn't seen before, which is both the monkey and the Susan Sarandon part in White Palace had this need to kind of shock people with their by saying sexual things that people don't usually say in public or don't say to strangers or people they just met or whatever. And that's kind of interesting because you think, is that part of the appeal that they had to the Jewish men that they were going with, because the Jewish girls were all such good girls and they never would have done that? Is that what the filmmaker was trying to say? I don't know, but it's interesting to note the parallel there. So I've showed you some of my favorite films, and then Portnoy's Complaint, which would be further down the list, but I hope it has made you want to go and see some of these movies. And also, again, let's take this full circle here, reflect on the fact that movies like this have not been made for about maybe 25 years. I guess White Palace was made in the early 1990s. And, again, I believe that has happened because filmmakers don't feel this issue sort of being a burning one that anybody wants to see a movie about. And also there really haven't been any, the truth be told, there really, to my mind, there haven't really been any books about the subject either that might have subsequently been made into the movies. So because they were looking at a particular time in our history as Jews, our history as Americans, these films can almost be looked at like museum pieces of the way we were. Thank you for your attention. I hope you have some questions.
Questions or comments for Ruth or suggestions of other movies, please just put your hand up and we'll come to you. I know you've seen a lot today, a lot to think about, a lot to enjoy. Anybody? Yes, I'm coming to you. Just 1 minute.
I remember, I don't know whether it was a movie or a show or a book, Abby's Irish Rose, which would have gone way back.
Yeah, that's
what was
Abby's
that about?
Irish Rose. That's a very famous play from the 1920s, I want to say, that was indeed about an intermarriage situation where the man was Irish. And I've tried to find the movie, and I don't think it's available on. It's available in a DVD, so I haven't really seen it, but I've certainly heard a lot of tales about it. Yeah, that's a good one.
Anybody else? Questions, comments, movies you want to recommend?
I'm happy to talk about movies.
There's one up there, and I see my friend Cheryl. So, hold on. Excuse me. Go ahead.
This is television, but I recently saw, and I think it's somewhat new. It's called The Way We Live Now, and it takes place in the early 1900s. But it's definitely about the clash between upper class English folks and nouveau riche Jewish.
This is set in England. Is that?
Yes.
No, I don't know that show, but that certainly would be a time when that was happening, and I think we can all, those of us who've been watching Downton Abbey for these many years, can all kind of see that beginning to happen as the working class people and the servants sort of break out of that. And actually, you know, now that I think about it, Downton Abbey has a Jewish theme too, right? Yeah, one of the lords is Jewish, and that becomes an issue in terms of their marriage. But that's just, I have to think that there weren't too many instances of that at that time, but that it probably did continue on getting quite much more of intermarriages then.
Next question's here in the middle.
Thanks so much. This was really fun. My question has to do with why the Jewish wives come off as so trivial. That in reality, most of them went to college, and yet they all seem like fools and ditzy and very superficial.
Okay, so we're mostly talking about White Palace, and also Lila in the 3-Day Bride. Lila was kind of unfortunate, and I think Neil Simon's right. I think the movie would have been better if it was more of an equal match. But I do think with White Palace that, you know, once again, this was all the way Nora was seeing it, not necessarily the way it was happening. And I actually thought the woman in the bathroom was very strong and made a really good point and didn't faint when she said that. And so and also you see a lot more of them during the film, the wives who are trying to take care of him and trying to help him get through this terrible time and everything. So they actually come across pretty positively, I think, in that film. But in general, I mean, Howard, well, you know, there's always the stereotypes about Jewish mothers, right? We sort of saw that, and for those of you who were in the class a couple months ago, that they really are stereotyped. And it is true that the older women in these films that we saw are really, okay, we know, why aren't you marrying a Jewish girl? But on the other hand, Annie Hall's family didn't come across very well either, did they?
Next question's in the middle again.
I'm wondering what your take is on the argument that Lena Dunham is kind of the modern-day Woody Allen, kind of the female equivalent, that she's cast with very attractive Gentiles she might not otherwise commingle with if she didn't have a hand in the production.
That's it's a very interesting question, and I just saw that she wrote one of those Shouts and Whispers columns for the New Yorker that Woody Allen writes from time to time, so maybe that's more of a comparison. I think she's a phenomenon. I don't know. Yeah, you know, maybe in the sense that she is getting these really good-looking guys and he got the really good-looking girls because they're writing the script, that there would be a comparison between them. But she's a bright, funny woman. I just wish she would keep her clothes on because it's not the most attractive part of her. But on the other hand, you have to kind of admire her doing that. It's like, you know, the heck with you. I am who I am, and this is... nobody's making her do that. She's a producer on her show, and she wrote it. So those are things that obviously, things that she thinks that she should be doing. But yeah, we're going to be seeing a lot of her. I would be surprised if she doesn't make the leap to movies. She made a movie called Tiny Furniture with her mother way back. That's one of the things that got her noticed. And because she's been really successful with this TV show, I think she can do anything. And her book, of course, and so I think she can pretty much do anything that she wants, and it'll be interesting to see if she does develop scripts and star in movies, what she brings to that phenomenon, and if it is like a Woody Allen.
Next question's here in the front.
Who was the actress who played Portnoy's mother? I like the crooked glasses she wore also.
It was Lee Grant. It was Lee Grant, and she's about 20 years younger than she's supposed to be in the very bad makeup job, but she's a wonderful actress.
I have a comment or question, and it's TV, not movies.
That's right.
And not necessarily a relationship, but it's so interesting to me that Seinfeld is all about being Jewish, but never talks about Jewish. But it's the most Jewish television show I can imagine, as is Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think I've seen Seinfeld's comedy routine once, and there's more references in that than he ever did in the TV show, but you're absolutely right. I think Larry David has talked about the play and has brought up the fact that he's Jewish in some of the interviews that I've read of him, but in general, yeah, I mean, was that of his choice, or was that CBS saying, you know, we don't want this to be a Jewish show? I don't know, but it was certainly a successful show.
So thank you all for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much to Ruthe. What fun. Thank you.